Hey everyone, welcome to a very special episode of Was That in Good Taste presents The Tasting Table. My name is Chandler Phillips.
I'm James Beery.
And we have a very special episode for you today. But before we get into it, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to stay all up to date on all Was That in Good Taste content. So we're coming into the fall. We're coming into our wine era. And so today we got a nice little triage of some different wines from all different places, except two of them are from the exact same place, and one of them is not like the others.
Oh, one of these things is not like the others.
And you know, we've featured our wines, a couple of wines and a couple of different wine-based cocktails, mulled wines, etc., on the show before, but I don't think we've ever really.
We're not really wine people.
We're not really wine people.
You know, that's definitely something that's like a gap inside of our content and our personal knowledge.
It's just, it always seemed so specialized that it was almost inaccessible to someone with just such a plebeian palate, such as yourself.
I don't know about you, but for me, it's a personal failing.
Oh, yeah. Probably a moral failing.
Yes, as well. Yes, completely.
I legit kind of feel like it's a bit of an identity thing because, like, I'm from an area that should be much more informed on some of the wines and wine culture. And yet here I am knowing little to nothing. But I don't know nothing.
Oh, well, you know something now?
I do know a thing or two now.
And we have an amazing lineup here before us.
And we're going to get chatting about them.
Introduce the lineup.
So we got some pretty neat stuff. I just started a new gig as a wine distributor rep, and so now I'm learning. I'm kind of getting a crash course on the portfolio, and so these are a couple that are from said wine distributors, and I think they're a nice little array of different kinds of reds, because I don't really know how to talk about whites yet. I think that's there's a lot of stuff going on within the whites. The white family is a little just hard to get to know, you know.
I see.
So I feel like some of these wines are a little bit more accessible. First up, we have a Tempranillo. No, it is a Crianza that features 75% Grenache grapes and 25% Tempranillo. Tempranillo is one of the indigenous grapes to Spain, very popular in Rioja region blends, as well as just kind of a backbone kind of grape that is featured in a lot of Spanish wines. So because we had our tasting earlier this week, I need to get rid of these bottles because you can't taste people on week-old wine. It's not a good look. It's not the wine's best look. And so instead, we got them. A little bit about this is Mosen Cleto, a Crianza from 2018, which one thing you may or may not know, old world wines tend to be defined by their regions and the domain, what's it called? The denomination de origine.
This is where we get into one of those things, because then you get into the old world, new world, then you have to explain the differences, then the why.
I feel like that one's kind of easy, old world, new world, because old world is the places that, like the European, you have colonists and colonized, right? Except New World.
So New World is like Argentinian,
Yeah.
and like Old World is Italian.
Yeah. I mean, California is also New World. Fun fact. Wine fun fact coming at you. There was a blight.
I've had too much
in the early 1900s that threatened the survival of a lot of specialty grapes grown in France and Italy. And they actually had to graft some of these plants onto American California plants just to keep the genus alive. Otherwise, they would have just lost an entire family of grape varietals due to just a sickness, a virus that was going through the French countryside, and they lost about 60% of their biodiversity of grapes at that time.
Oh
And
wow.
the reason a lot of them were able to be salvaged was because it was actually in California and in the Midwest. Surprisingly, there was places that were allowing wine or grape growers to draft. What is it? Graft their plants onto that. And so then when they brought them back, they are old world, old lineage grapes that had a little bit of the new world stuck inside.
And I'm assuming that doing that has affected the flavor. In addition to the terroir, the flavor from the ground
Well,
and the grapes directly into the liquor. Of course, that has a thing to do with it. But I'm assuming that just doing that influences the flavor.
well, because they're never really the same afterwards. I mean, they've been through a lot of trauma.
Oh, it lost 60% of its biodiversity.
Yeah,
That matters because that's a lot.
that is a lot. Thinking about all the different types of grapes, there's so many different types that like even the small fraction of grapes that you see in your traditional wines are still but a small fraction of grapes altogether. Now they're making grapes that taste like cotton candy, grapes that taste like
I love cotton candy
gummy
grapes.
bears and gumdrops and things that are just like they taste like candy. I don't think you can make wine.
So what's
from
it taste like? What's the tasting profiles? Or how do we talk about wine? That might be my problem. As an unexperienced person, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm being better, but I'm a tourist, okay? How do we talk about wine?
The trick to talking about wine is you can say it tastes like any fruit except grapes. That's the one fruit that you're not allowed to say it tastes like because they get mad. If you,
So this what kind of wine is this again?
it is a Crianza, which is a Spanish wine from the
Mango, dragon
Zaragoza.
fruit, and durian.
Durian. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm going to say that's kind of insulting.
I'm obviously being obnoxious. I think it's just difficult because I don't know. So when it comes to describing the flavors in things, coffee, liquors, or well, in food, which is the easiest one because you just know what the item tastes like, right? But when you have a beer that tastes like mangoes, it doesn't taste like you're biting into a mango, but you know what it tastes like, right? Because mango candy is not a mango,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you keep going, right? Now you get the grapes, right? And it tastes kind of like grapefruit, but it obviously is not grapefruit. There's no grapefruit in the glass. It just reminds you of grapefruit. But I don't know the common flavor profiles that exist in wine and across the wine spectrum, so I'm unable to identify or discern exactly what it is I'm tasting.
I like to think of it as, um, like when you see a stat wheel in a video game or something, and it's got like multiple different dimensions going off in different ways, and it's like your charisma, strength, dexterity, and then like however, I don't know, symmetrical your shape is within that matrix is how balanced it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think wine kind of exists in one of those that has like maybe 5 different nodes. That's the word. It's like it's not a axis so much as it is a node, and just the center point would be 0,
Mm-hmm.
and the outer point would be like, I don't know, we'll say the most extreme version of that flavor. And so I think with wines, I tend to look at it in terms of spice, um, fruit, jam, stem, and
That's so abstract.
yeah. Well, because of the
You're like whisper of wind across the grapes. You're like the terroir of the ground of the farmer's mother's childhood home.
well, so that's the things I'm trying to learn about wines is how you can like taste that kind of stuff. But really, it's just knowing how to. It's knowing how to listen to your tongue as you're tasting something. I mean, because you can try a fuck ton of different wines and be like, yeah, they're good. I like them. And I feel like they have done their job as an alcoholic beverage. But there's there's a bit of pomp and circumstance. Not pomp. That's
A bit of pomp.
like you get into I guess a little bit of a meditative state when you have to open up your mind to that sense. But in doing so, people I think tend to have a feel or tend to get gatekeepy about, or maybe that's just the way we as people trying to get into something feel about like why we shouldn't get into it. Like I don't know, is that our own
No, because
implicit
I
bias
think that
of like
definitely, well, it's like, going into new spaces that can happen. Like earnestly can just happen. Like, where you should be there, but you just don't feel like you just don't feel like it. Maybe you don't feel like you're fitting in.
maybe you feel a
And then
little
other
outclassed?
times, people, because they're afraid for their spot, their position, or uh, something in the social structure or hierarchy, you know, would be want to gatekeep you, keep you out, so that you don't affect them.
Then in that case, when it comes to tasting wine, open up your heart and just really think about what you like or think about what it reminds you of. And I think that's why we got into doing Was That in Good Taste, and especially the tasting table in general, was so that we could really just reflect on what we're tasting, why we're tasting, and like what it really reminds, what kind of memories and senses, synapses it fires for us. You want to hear a really stony baloney thought?
Sure.
I was staring up at the ceiling the other day thinking, um I th- what if like deja vu just happens because we um as an animal species were like evolutionary advanced in pattern recognition to the point where like when we recognize patterns and stuff, it's better to err on the side of caution than it would be to not recognize a potential pattern. Like the reason why, like if you're walking down the street in the middle of New York and you hear a bag rustle and you jump because you think it might be a snake, but you know there's not going to be a snake there. Like that kind of intrinsic reaction, the given like psychological mechanisms to be predisposed for pattern recognition. And so like when something happens that just ignites a certain sequence of neurons or synapses to fire in a similar way as it has before, we're just like overwhelmed with the feeling that we've done this exact thing before.
You have wine brain.
So drinking wine, drinking different types of flavors, you want to try to follow those synapse trails, I guess. That's what I'm rolling it back to, is like you're not looking for something to taste like something else. You're trying to dig the crevices of your gray matter to think, all right, where has this been in my sensory vault before? And like, is there a way I can try to access that part of my memory by using either my olfactory senses or my tasting senses, and even texture to a certain degree? Because like with this wine, it's got a nice little backbone to it. Like it's not too rigid. And say like by the end it has a certain roundness that I think If I were to describe this wine as like a sports apparatus, it would be like a high lie, um, little like because it's got some rigidity, but it's got some flex, and at the very end, it's got a little bit of a snap, a little bit of snap to it. Um, that's my
It
feeling.
tastes kind of like grapes.
Motherfucker.
It's good. Listen, I drank the whole glass because we're tasting.
I mean, it's a good wine.
What's next?
Next, we have a new, not a new. We have a 2019 Zinfandel from Lake County, California, which is actually around one of my favorite lakes to go fishing at, Clear Lake. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at Clear Lake, on the one side of the lake, there's these rolling hills.
Pour
of-
the wine.
These rolling hills of vineyards, and it looks really nice to the west. And then on the east, after the winds come sweeping down the vineyard hills and across the lake, there's just a bunch of little lake houses and motorhomes and stuff like that are low key kind of sinking into the lake. And there's like what's it called? It's called a Superfund site. You see these? You know about these? You hear about these? When Reagan was like, "Hey, it's okay to just dump toxic chemicals. It's a big enough lake. It's fine."
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yeah. So that's on the other side of the lake, away from all the vineyards and all the rich people homes.
Love that. That sounds equal. That sounds fair.
Anyway, but Lake County, beautiful county. This one's called, this is Buck Shack from the Shannon Family Vineyards, one of the most notorious winemaking what is it? A winemaking organization in the Napa, Sonoma, Lake County area of Northern California. Now
This is so delicious. Okay,
we got a Zinfandel.
I was so excited for you to pour this.
It's Zin, and what's so special about this one, James?
Bourbon barrels?
It is aged in bourbon barrels. Let me see if it has an exact amount of time that
I don't think so. I doubt it.
I want to say it's given 13 months in bourbon barrels, but I cannot say for sure.
So if it doesn't say it on there, then you could imply or infer anything that you'd like.
Little note to behold. It is a 14.5% wine.
Oh, that explains a lot.
A lot of wines tend to hang out between 11 and 13, and this one's over 14%. That's interesting.
This may not be my first Buck Shack of the evening.
Fun.
Delicious, candy-like, with a red apple kind of brightness. Not that tannic. That means it's not that like tart. It doesn't give you that weird feeling on the end of your cheeks.
It doesn't give you like the little bit of buzz in your jawbone. It's big, bold, and fruity. Lots of dark cherry, and I'd even go a little bit of boysenberry in there. I think you had mentioned some blueberry. Yeah, very dark berry. I think Zins tend to be a little bit on the, like, not too acidic, but kind of tart, like Welch's grape juice kind of side. And so Zins tend to get a little bit of a bad rap, or at least they tend to be not as refined as a varietal. And I think that the bourbon barrel aging on this, because we've had a handful of bourbon barrel aged wines in our experience.
With the Cooper and Thief.
Cooper Thief, Robert Mondavi, I think Behringer also.
Oh,
Behringer
yes.
Bros had a bourbon barrel, and usually they do Cabernet or Cab Sav, Sauvignon, which is a great like it's Cabernet Sauvignon is the Leos of wines, whereas Zin a little bit more of a Scorpio.
Really?
I'd say they're can have a little bit more of a bite, but will definitely stick up for like there's a rigidity there.
Okay.
But I think the
So you're
bourbon
saying that the
Buck Shack.
Buck Shack, you're saying the Buck Shack will do you good at night,
Well,
but y'all have an argument in the morning.
you might have an argument in the morning. Well, no, actually, because that's what I'm saying. I think the bourbon barrel aging on it.
Oh, that's the respect.
That's the communication skills. That's the
That's you should go talk to a therapist, and then they do.
and then they do. And then not in like a well, now I know how to tell you about your problems kind of talk to a
Now
therapist.
it's like more like a listening and understanding,
Yeah.
which is what people mostly want.
I think it's something that's very palatable and something that is easily welcomed, because it's sensitive. It is a very sensitive wine, but sometimes with that sensitivity comes defense mechanisms that
Honestly, can fit in anywhere. Obviously queer, but also if you go into the hoedown,
it can fit in. I think this is a very fun wine, and
you see, I'm liking it.
this may be a rude thing to say, but I think this wine would be great in a spritzer.
No, I was just thinking, like a sangria.
Oh yeah, like a mulled wine.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
This Buck Shack, and honestly, it retails for
Buck Shack Brew.
like a little bit of a witch's brew.
I'm about to bleep that. It's mine.
That sounds really. They put in a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of allspice, a little bit,
And of course, the secret ingredient,
brandy. No.
the Krabby Patty secret formula.
Oh,
Just like a secret ingredient.
the chemical X.
Just something that you can't have.
Just
Proprietary to us.
just a little bit of je ne sais quoi.
What's next? What's this?
Next we got up is another one
Oh.
from the Shannon Family Vineyards.
This is the Cab Sav.
This is the Cab Sav
The Cabernet Sauvignon. which is
Vigilance, also from Lake
That's
County.
French, right?
Yes. Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the offspring grapes from Cabernet Franc, if that ever comes up. I think it's usually from the Burgundy? No. The Bordeaux blends, and is also probably one of the more popular California, Sonoma area varietals.
Like they need anything else.
I mean, Napa does great cab sav. Like, honestly, Napa's cab savs are like fucking wicked, dude.
Isn't that kind of what they're known for?
That is what they're like. They got their Pinot Noirs and whatnot, but really it's the 100% cab savs that come out of Napa and Sonoma are kind of what put California wines on the map. They also tend to do some blends that mimic Bordeaux style blends, but their cab savs are really what shine through. I think other things that tend to go into a Bordeaux are like Sangiovese and I'm probably butchering this, honestly.
Well, I
and
actually have
like
a question for you.
maybe a little bit of Merlot.
because you were talking about the grapes, right?
Yes.
And I was realizing that I always kind of forget, right? You know, you look at the bottles and you see like these names. What is the grape? Because sometimes you have Napa Valley and you have Napa grapes, right? Isn't that a thing?
No, no. Well, in
Okay,
some,
okay. Pick a region that has a Montepulciano.
yes,
There you go.
I think
That's one. Like
that
they
is
have
one.
grapes and they have a region, right?
It's true.
So you can have Montepulciano grapes and a different type of wine,
Yeah,
right?
like they'd be in like some other blend of things.
Okay. Forgot my original question because my original example was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I forgot my. I'm gonna remember.
I'm gonna just bring it back. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. Those are the Bordeaux grapes. Whereas Syrah is like the Rhone main one. We're gonna get into some Syrah, and then a Syrah outside of France. That's a Shiraz.
So that's what I was gonna. How can you tell with some of the grapes are named after the regions, right? Or vice versa. How can you tell if a wine is Cab Sav from a Cab Sav region versus like Montepulciano region versus Montepulciano grape?
That's a good question. For Cab Sav, that one I don't think there's a Cab Sav
Yeah, I
region,
knew. That's why I
but
stopped
like
myself because I keep doing that when I know one.
for the other ones, I think it all depends on if it's it'll say if it's from Italy, it'll say it's a Montepulciano wine, and that'll have Montepulciano grapes to some degree because it has to be made in a certain way that's state certified for that region. The grapes outside of it, it'll if it's still in Italy, the region will take the larger font, the higher it'll be the bigger thing. And so then elsewhere on the label, it might say it's made with Montepulciano grapes, but it's from.
Gotcha. Thank you. I wanted to,
I
you know,
think.
learning.
Don't quote me on this
No,
again.
no, take everything as gospel. So the Cab Sav.
Cab Sav. What do I know about this one? Our Vigilance Cabernet Sauvignon has complex layers of some things that we're going to talk about. Ooh. Oh, those are interesting. Wow. Those are some cool tasting notes. I'm curious if you'll pick them up.
Oh, well, I love that. I love how he read it to himself in his head. Good TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. That is.
Chandler is now pouring the wine.
I had to throw back the rest of the Buckshack. So Buckshack's actually
the
made,
wine is pouring into the glass.
it's called that because the vineyards that it's now grown on used to be hunting grounds.
Oh my god.
And so now they use the area that they store the bourbon barrels in used to be where they would do the breaking down of the bucks after they hunted. It used to be like hunting reserve.
Obviously currants. Dark chocolate.
Ooh, he's pulling out the
Oh.
cacao. What else you got? What else?
I don't remember what else is on the back. I don't remember what else is on the back of the bottle. I should have remembered it all.
What about the spice? Do you taste the spice?
There's something like a little dry on the end there. It like leaves my tongue coated and kind of a texture. Because there's something, a kind of an astringency that's sucking the moisture out of my mouth, which is actually what that feeling is, in case anybody's ever wondering.
That's the tannin.
Yeah, the tannin is like, but it's not super heavy because it's not hitting the side of my cheeks. I'm not getting that kind of reaction like a pectinated thing, but it's a little tart.
It doesn't feel like an IPA, is what you're saying. It's not that kind of bitterness.
It's also a little sweet. I think that this has, I don't know. I can't read this. It's too small.
What are you trying to look at?
I don't know.
It's honor and responsibility to care for the land.
That's what it tastes like.
Oh, it's sustainably farmed.
It tastes like it's sustainably farmed.
Um, to preserve the environment for generations, for our children and
Okay,
generations.
it's no
to
buck.
come.
The reality is, it's no buck shack. Okay, it's drier.
It tastes like it wears Birkenstocks. Okay, that's what we're getting at. It tastes like it donates to UNICEF. Okay, it tastes.
It always, every time it gets drunk, it like smokes a cigarette and talks about joining Doctors Without Borders.
Ooh, it tastes like it's still working on its post grad in like food theory,
Ah,
like the sociology of markets.
I think food theory. Well, actually, I took a undergrad in food theory. And food theory is the study of proliferation of delis, bodegas, and food trucks, specifically in the eastern Seattle region. Which,
I would actually listen to a lecture
which,
series on
which is
that.
a short drive away from.
From Lake County.
Is it really?
No, it's probably like you got to go through Oregon.
I don't know anything about the West Coast.
So picture like Utah, but there's another one, or like picture Colorado. Picture everything you think of about Colorado. Now picture that on top of California. And then there's another one kind of wearing it like a hat, but it's also kind of like it's if Colorado and Toronto had a baby,
Hot.
and then that baby grew up and is now a hat on a hat. That's what Washington is. You're a hat on a hat. So
Okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Okay, you shouldn't drink wine
what?
because when you drink wine,
You drink wine.
you have a little too much fun. Okay, I think that is kind of the fun of wine, and I think that's one of the best and most fun parts about wanting to explore wine is I want to get good at tasting wine in a real way. But also, I want to encapsulate and enjoy the fun of wine, the social aspect of it. You know what I mean?
I'm
The
gonna say
taste of it.
this cab is a bit bouncy. You know, it's got a initial roundness to it that kind of like it rolls on the tongue.
What
Like,
kind what sports ball?
ooh, all right, hold on. Let me get one more little because I'm somewhere between like a kickball, like one of the classic red rubber handballs, or is it a squash ball? I'm thinking, I'm leaning to something a little bit more cushy. It's a little nerf. It's a little nerfy. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's either nerf or it's nothing. It's a Nerf football, but one of the like newer generation ones that isn't the foam ones. It's like the rubber kind of thing, but it's foam on the inside. So like if you threw it at like a 5-year-old and they missed it and it kind of bounced off their head, they wouldn't hurt. They'd just be a little startled by it, you know, because like you got like a good spiral on it. Maybe one of the ones with the little tail end.
Where it's what's the one? What's the one football one that had the twist and
Had
you
the-
could throw it perfect every time?
And then it would whistle when it
Yeah,
came
yeah,
down.
they would whistle.
Those are cool. Those are great for like playing Three Flags Up or something.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's where you got one person who's a thrower and then everyone else is kind of like in a little mosh pit.
Where would you play this?
At a park, like in an open field, and you
You
just
had parks, you had fields. I'm from New York. All we have in New York is tall buildings, concrete, and displaced people.
and Prospect Park and like Maria.
It's
Hernandez
pretty
Park.
green.
It's pretty green. Like you'd play this. I'd play this in the middle of a street. You throw it straight up in the air, and then everyone kind of skirmishes, and then whoever catches it, they get a point, and first one to 3 points then becomes the thrower. And if you dropped it, then then you just fucked it up. And this is not the kind of wine that you want to drop.
I agree. It's the kind of wine you want to drink.
Thank you for joining us at this amazing tasting table. If you want to learn more about any of these wines, check out the Vigilance. This is the 2020 vintage by Shannon Family Vineyards. Then we got Buckshack and as well Mosen, Cleto. Thank you so much for letting us have your wines, even though it wasn't really gifted or anything. This has been the Tasting Table. I've been Chandler Phillips.
I'm James Beery. You don't tell me I've had too much to drink.
But I will tell you, we can keep tasting. Keep it tasty.
Sipping.
Oh, that's a good one.